Today we're going to recap another rookie from the 2022 draft class, go over their rookie season, their player value, and try to figure out what to do from here. This player that we're talking about today is going to be Zamir White, running back of the Raiders, and it was not a great season for him. Did not start off hot, but there are some indicators that you may want to latch onto for the near future. But let's go ahead and dig into these numbers, dig into the stats. And the first thing, as always, let's look at average draft position over here at dynastyleaguefootball.com. Right now, valued as the RB53 and is being drafted as the 58th player off the board. 160.25 average draft position. It's falling anywhere at 178 range to the 134 range in drafts. When you look at these four drafts right here, like this ADP is from December, and ADP is going to be rolling out here next few days for January. So be on the lookout for that. I expect us maybe to increase a little bit. Maybe him bumping up a few spots. Nothing huge, though. Very similar location to where he's at now. Looking here at his overall value chart from his ADP, his historic ADP, we're seeing a little bit of a dip from September to December, which is natural, but is not a great thing. It was low in August, low in July, and low in June to begin with. So it's really holding steady almost compared to what we're seeing now. And we had this big bump going into the season because remember, Josh Jacobs received the first carry in a preseason game. Remember, Josh Jacobs wasn't being used right in a preseason game, and the market went crazy in August. And then that reflected in September ADP because ADP rolls out a little later. And next thing you know, things revert back the way they are. So you may want to look at where he was at in August compared to September because we had an incidence bump that up. Because after that, he was being marketed as the next man up. And really, if there's any speculation, you kind of want that bump in value. But when you see the bump, you really have to realize it as well because, it's also a bubble when the whole market shifts in. Looking at his productivity here, and it's non-existent. It is non-existent, and it should be obvious. Josh Jacobs just went ham this year and took over, played well. One of the factors with this player profile, with him being a fourth-round pick with some athleticism, is that Josh Jacobs gets injured a lot, and that just didn't happen this year. That just didn't happen. He has a lot of injuries in the backlog of his career from his days of college, early days with the Raiders, and it just didn't happen. He had a full season, and he showed what he was capable of, and kudos to him. Nothing against him. We're just looking at Zamir White. Zamir White also wasn't the greatest back of all time coming out, so you have to put some blame on him as well. Just some focus with his approach to the line of scrimmage, finding the holes. He does have some pop in his step, as you see on the tape. We saw that. We went over that. However, 2 attempts, 1 attempt, 1 attempt, 1 attempt, 1 attempt, 2, 2, 2, 3, 1, 1. If you're not getting the ball, you can't be productive. That's just how it is. And you got your 2.8 fantasy points 1 week. You can look at that. You got your 2.4 on another week. Not looking good for a production profile for a rookie. On the trade analyzer, if you want to look at that, this is like a calculator. So roundabout late third round pick range in value. It's going to be very interesting. I look for him to increase in value a smidge in the offseason. And really it depends on where Josh Jacobs signs, what the Raiders do. And these picks here should increase in value as well to some degree. This might have been increased a good bit already throughout the last 6 months, year and a half, due to the credible threats of this class being so stacked at the running back position that it might have been already papered up going into this draft season. This is a different rookie class compared to others in terms of hype, but it should still increase. Zamir White, I look for him to increase as people go on the back burner. This number should increase. And looking at the chart here for the ADP comparison, I see that chart also spiking up to just a little bit higher, under 140-ish, and somewhere in between there, but not too high. Maybe something what we're seeing in November-ish, maybe somewhere around that range. But I look for that to creep up a little bit as people speculate, look at a young running back, look at the depth chart, and that's just natural from the market. That's just what they do. This is what I've seen over time with these young prospects in similar situations. I've been doing this for about a decade, watching the markets, watching ADP and everything. So I got a good feel of what's going on. Zamir White here, profile looks good. 4.4, 40-yard dash, 96 percentile size adjusted speed score, 214 pounds, 6 foot. Those are the metrics you kind of want in a running back. Also, the burst score is very good, 64th percentile. As long as it's not like in the 10th percentile range, you're pretty going to be good. You're going to be all right. And you got decent size adjusted speed here. The production, something you want to know here, wasn't the most productive back, wasn't a generational talent, and that reflects in the 4th round pick. Day 3 guys are interchangeable. They can be switched out like that. The sunk cost is nothing. The difference between a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick, there is a difference, but it's not much. And day 3 guys, historically, can get switched out like that, no matter if they had a successful rookie season, successful 2 seasons. It just happens. And that's just the odds. That's historically. You'll get your exceptions. You'll get that one player that blows up. But when you look at the whole landscape of things, the odds just stack against them. And that's just the way it is. So if you look at things by odds from the occurrence, from history standards, the odds of him just blowing up, just due to him being a 4th round pick, him having limited production, aren't good. The things you want to latch onto due to the price point of where he's at, size adjusted speed, and then this depth chart. One is, what are they going to do with Josh Jacobs? Derek Carr's out of the fold. More than likely, he should be. I mean, just from what we saw from what was on the internet, he's out. Derek Carr's out. The running back position is very interesting here because it's very ambiguous from here. Look at what we have left. Brandon Bolden, Amir Abdullah, Zamir White. And we went back there. We went on Jacob Johnson. And we have a lot to speculate on here for the offseason. That's why we should see a value spike. Looking at the value spike here from Keep Trade Cut, another market tool that we can look at. And he is staying put in value. If you look at this from the last 6 months, that's a good indicator to keep on with him, because if there's any indication of something positive, and I'm talking about news, I'm not even talking about production, anything in news, you might get a spike increase to where you could sell off a last round option or a back end option on your roster that could increase in value, something you want to look at. That's something you might be able to do. That could be a better package up piece for your team. Not necessarily a guy that could help you in Dynasty and production, which could happen, because looking back at his portfolio here over at Player Profiler, he does have a solid athletic profile that we can latch onto. Good size adjusted athleticism. So all he needs is workload for him to be productive. But looking at the market, they're standing put. Remember Jalen Tolbert with this chart here. We saw it up and then it just dropped straight down. And that's the market saying, hey, we're done with this guy. We've seen enough. He's not on the field. Nothing's happening. They are leaning onto this production profile right here. This is what they're leaning on, and they're leaning onto the depth chart that we just talked about. This is what's holding his value here. This could get rocked by this year's draft class, and this could also spike a bit before the draft class if Josh Jacobs goes somewhere else. It's not indicative that he will sign back with the Raiders. After all, he had that good season, but prior to that, he's had some injuries. He's going to be expensive. You're losing your quarterback. By the time you get a new quarterback, things get set back up. You may be done with Jacobs and you just wasted that contract on. It's really how they want to build this team going forward. They might be going for another quarterback that's a veteran and they may want to keep him. There's a lot of speculation here, so they're just trying to keep it flatline. Another thing is this chart could bump up greatly, mainly because that speculation, and it hasn't yet. So really, the market's just flatlining here, just waiting to see what happens with Josh Jacobs. Another thing here with the positional rank, as you see him dip in November, everything is starting to come back up. RB45 right now in ADP for January, or however they do their things, whatever they want to call that ranking, but that's where they're at. It was dipped in RB57, RB60 in November. RB40s, September. That's the high mark when we look at ADP back here, September 124. So it looks like things are trending up. there's more volume, more things to look at for keep, trade, cut instead of 4 rookie drafts here for the ADP. There should be more ADP drafts in January, February, March when they conduct it, so you'll get more of a sample size, but sample size is much greater on the site to work off of. And as you can see, the speculation theory here is increasing the value. Does that necessarily make him a buy? No. But looking at his adjacent players right now, he's pushing value with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, whatever that means. That has to mean something to you versus that other guy. He means different to a lot of different people. Early 3rd round versus late 3rd round on the trade finder. So you want to look at that. Adjacent running backs, Jalen Warren, Damian Harris, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Donta Foreman. So he's in that range-ish. Even though Jalen Warren had some production, still, the draft capital is not as good. And it's still ambiguous. Zamir White's very ambiguous, so a lot of things to look at. Plus, Najee Harris is there. Damian Harris is on the down low, and things are just changing here. So there's a lot to look at. One thing you want to note here is this offseason is going to be huge for his Dynasty stock. This offseason is going to be huge because what are the Raiders going to do? If they re-sign Josh Jacobs, it's done, and he's a speculation backup just in case something happens to him, which is always good to have on the roster, but not necessarily an asset that could go boom on you. But you always want handcuffs anyways, especially in those deeper leagues where you need to stock up on guys. Also, if Josh Jacobs is gone and they neglect to fill the running back position and they feel like it's a patch-up piece until we really get other things built, then his value will increase. That'll give you an opportunity to trade out, or you just ride it for the year. Maybe you strike gold and you get some production out of him. After all, we don't know what he's like with a lot of volume. Maybe things start to click. Maybe he starts being productive. Maybe things can go up. After all, the tape at Georgia, he's done some good things. He did have some production over his career. It wasn't like it was nothing at Georgia. So he was able to produce. He was sharing the backfield with some good running backs. And then on top of that, we got the athletic profile that not all running backs have. He has good size adjusted athleticism that could lend to him just falling into production. You don't have to be the perfect running back to be good in this league. You just need a few good things and just the offensive line doing well for you, and you just hit that hole, and next thing you know, you're getting more carries, you're getting more touches, and you got enough to be productive for a little bit, and that can give you some value in Dynasty that you can use for your lineups or trade away. But there's a good chance that his stock could rise, and there's also a good chance that his stock is plummet, which is why we're seeing his market value flatline right now, because Dynasty gamers are waiting to see how that other shoe is going to drop. But let me know in the comments below what you think about Zamir White. Are you stashing, you holding, you selling, you folding? I want to hear about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Really want to help you gauge the market, learn about these players, help your Dynasty teams. If anything, you get some information from me to make your decisions going forward. Hopefully you learn some processes as well. But I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.